Elena had always lived a quiet, predictable life in her small coastal town. She worked at the local library, walked to the beach every evening, and spent weekends reading old novels or helping her grandmother with gardening. Nothing dramatic ever happened in her world until the night she found the letter. It was a cold, windy evening. Elena had just finished closing the library when she noticed an envelope lying on the doorstep. There was no name, no stamp, and no explanation, only a small, intricate symbol drawn in dark blue ink. It resembled an eye surrounded by curved lines, almost like waves. Curious and slightly uneasy, Elena picked it up and slipped it into her bag. When she arrived home, she made herself tea, sat at her desk, and opened the envelope. Inside was a single piece of paper with a short message. "Your help is needed. Go to the lighthouse at dawn. Come alone." There was no signature, no clue about the sender, and no explanation about what kind of help they needed. Elena stared at the message for a long time, wondering if it was some kind of joke. Her town was safe. People didn't send mysterious notes or ask for secret meetings. But something about the letter felt strange and important. She placed it under the lamp and examined the symbol more closely. The more she stared at it, the more familiar it seemed. Suddenly, she remembered. She had seen the same symbol carved in an old book that belonged to her grandfather, a book filled with stories about hidden societies, ancient guardians, and lost secrets of the sea. Could it be connected? She whispered to herself. The thought made her heart race. Elena knew she should ignore the letter. She should throw it away, forget about it, and continue her normal life. But deep inside, she felt a strange pull, like someone was calling her from far away. That night, she barely slept. Questions kept spinning in her mind. Who left the letter? Why the lighthouse? What do they want from me? And what does the symbol mean? As the first light of dawn appeared, Elena made her decision. She put on a warm coat, took a flashlight, and walked toward the old lighthouse at the end of the cliff. The wind was strong, and the sky was turning orange. The lighthouse had been abandoned for years. Nobody went there anymore. When she reached the door, she hesitated for a moment. Then she placed her hand on the old wooden surface, and the door slowly opened by itself. Her breath caught in her throat. "Hello?" she called out softly. There was no answer, only the sound of waves crashing against the rocks below. But inside, she saw something she never expected. A man standing in the middle of the room, waiting for her. His expression serious, his clothes dark, and on his jacket, the same blue symbol. He looked at her and said, "Elena, we don't have much time." For a moment, Elena couldn't move. The man standing before her seemed completely unfamiliar, yet the symbol on his jacket connected him to the strange letter she had received. His presence felt both threatening and strangely reassuring at the same time. "Who are you?" Elena finally asked, her voice unsteady. The man took a slow step forward. He was tall, with sharp eyes and dark hair that looked slightly wind-swept, as if he had been outside all night. "My name is Adrian," he said. "I'm part of an organization that has been watching your family for a long time." Elena felt a shiver run down her spine. "My family? Why?" Adrian didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out a small metal device shaped like a compass. But it wasn't a normal compass. The needle glowed faintly with blue light, and the surface of the device was covered with the same curved symbol from the letter. "This," Adrian explained, "belonged to your grandfather." Elena's breath caught. "My grandfather? He died years ago. How do you have that?" Adrian stepped closer and placed the device gently in her hand. The moment her fingers touched it, the needle began spinning rapidly, as if reacting to her presence. "Because," stammered Adrian, "your grandfather wasn't just a fisherman or a storyteller. He was part of us. Elena looked down at the glowing device, shaking her head slowly. Part of what? Adrian exhaled deeply, as if preparing for a difficult explanation. We call ourselves the Tidelock Order. We are protectors of ancient knowledge, knowledge connected to the sea, to forgotten portals, and to creatures that most people don't even believe exist. Elena blinked, unsure if she was hearing correctly. You can't expect me to believe that. I don't expect you to believe anything yet, but you need to understand that your grandfather played a crucial role in protecting something extremely important, and now it's your turn. Elena felt her throat tighten. None of this made sense. She had grown up hearing her grandfather's old legends, stories about underwater ruins, glowing stones, and secret guardians, but she always thought they were just fairy tales. "Why me?" she whispered. Adrian gave her a steady, almost solemn look. "Because the seal your grandfather protected is weakening, and because the one who inherits the compass must continue the duty." Elena stared at the glowing compass in her hand. The spinning needle slowly stopped and pointed toward a narrow staircase leading deeper into the lighthouse. "What is it pointing to?" she asked. Adrian turned his head and followed the compass's direction. "That is exactly what we need to find out." He motioned for her to follow him. Elena hesitated only a second before stepping forward. The stairs creaked beneath their feet as they descended into the lower chamber of the lighthouse. The space was cold, silent, and filled with dust. Old ropes, broken lanterns, and rusted tools lay scattered around. But one thing stood out. A large circular hatch made of iron sat in the middle of the floor, and on the hatch was the same symbol, the eye surrounded by waves. Elena's heartbeat quickened. "What is this?" she whispered. Adrian approached the hatch and knelt beside it. An entrance, a sealed passage. Your grandfather locked it before he disappeared. Elena frowned. "Disappeared? He didn't disappear. He died." Adrian looked up at her with sad, knowing eyes. "That's what you were told." Silence filled the room like a heavy cloud. Elena felt her hands tremble. "What are you saying?" she asked softly. Adrian stood up and placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "He didn't die, Elena. He crossed through this passage and never returned." Elena stared at the hatch, her mind spinning. She had grown up missing her grandfather, thinking he was gone forever. Now she wasn't even sure what to believe. After a long moment, Adrian took a deep breath. "The compass brought you here for a reason. If you want answers, we must open this hatch." He reached into his coat again and pulled out a strange key made of dark metal, shaped like a spiral. He held it up. "Are you ready?" he asked. Elena swallowed hard. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I want the truth." Adrian nodded, inserted the key into the center of the hatch, and the floor began to tremble. The moment Adrian turned the spiral key, a low, rumbling sound filled the chamber. Dust drifted down from the ceiling, and the symbol on the hatch began to glow faintly. Elena stepped back instinctively, her heart pounding in her chest. The hatch slowly rotated, unlocking itself with a series of heavy clicks. Then, with a deep metallic groan, it lifted, revealing a dark tunnel descending into the earth. Cold air rose from below, carrying the smell of salt and old stone. Elena felt a chill crawl up her spine. Adrian lit a small lantern and looked at her. "Stay close to me," he said. "Once we enter, the passage will react to you, not to me." "React to me?" Elena repeated nervously. "You carry the compass and your bloodline," Adrian said simply. He began climbing down the iron ladder, and Elena followed, trying not to look at the darkness surrounding them. The tunnel walls were lined with old symbols, carved deeply into the stone. Some were simple shapes, but others were more complex, spirals, waves, and markings that looked like strange constellations. The deeper they went, the more alive the carving seemed. When Elena passed her hand near one of them, it glowed faintly. She whispered, "This place is ancient. Older than the town itself, older than the lighthouse itself." At the bottom of the ladder, the tunnel widened into a long corridor. Water dripped from the ceiling in slow, rhythmic taps echoing through the passage. The air was cool and strangely heavy, as if saturated with secrets. As they walked, the compass in Elena's hand began to glow brighter. Its needle stopped pointing in random directions and instead aimed steadily forward. "It's guiding us," she said. "It always does," Elena answered. They continued for several minutes until the corridor opened into a vast underground chamber. Elena gasped. She had expected something small and simple, but instead, the chamber looked like an ancient hall. Massive stone pillars rose from the ground, covered in vines and old seaweed. The floor was cracked in places, letting small pools of water collect. Along the walls were circular carvings, each one depicting scenes she didn't fully understand. People standing before waves, strange sea creatures, spirals of light rising from the ocean. "Your grandfather came here often," Adrian said quietly. "This is where he studied the seal." Elena walked slowly, her eyes drawn to everything around her. How did he even find this place? It wasn't a matter of finding it, it was a matter of being chosen by it. Elena felt a strange tightness in her chest. "Chosen? Like you said I was chosen?" Adrian nodded. "But why?" she asked. Before he could answer, the compass in her hand suddenly glowed with intense blue light. Its needle spun wildly again. "Elena," Adrian began, but it was too late. A circle on the far wall began to rumble. The stone shifted, splitting into segments that slid open like petals. Behind it was another chamber, smaller but filled with light. A soft humming sound filled the air, like distant singing. Elena felt her body move forward without thinking. Something was pulling her toward the new chamber. "Elena, wait!" Adrian called, grabbing her arm. But when he touched her, the compass released a shock of blue light, forcing him back. "Elena!" he shouted, struggling to get up. But Elena couldn't stop. Her feet moved on their own, and her breath came in fast, shaky bursts. She stepped inside the glowing room. Everything felt different here, warmer, brighter, almost alive. At the center of the pedestal was a small object. Floating above it was a crystal shard shaped like a tear. It pulsed softly with blue light, almost like it was breathing. Elena's voice came out as a whisper. "What is this?" Adrian, finally able to stand again, stepped cautiously into the room. "That," he said, "is part of the Tidelock seal, one of 3 shards. Your grandfather protected it with his life." Elena stared at the shard, mesmerized. "What does it do?" asked Elena. Adrian inhaled deeply. "It holds back the rift." "The rift?" Elena repeated, confused. Adrian walked closer to the pedestal, but kept a respectful distance. "There's a boundary deep beneath the ocean, a barrier between our world and another. The seal keeps that barrier closed, but the shards are losing power. If the rift fully opens—" He paused. Elena looked at him anxiously. "What happens?" Adrian met her eyes, his expression grim. "Creatures from the deep, ancient, powerful, and not meant for the surface, will return." Elena felt a chill run through her entire body. "And your grandfather," Adrian continued, "was the last person to stabilize the seal. He disappeared trying to repair the damage." Elena shook her head slowly. "So he didn't die, he was trying to stop something?" "Yes," Adrian said softly, "and now the responsibility has passed to you." Elena swallowed hard. Her mind was racing. She felt the weight of the moment like a heavy stone in her chest. The shard floated slightly closer to her, its light strengthened.
"Elena," Adrian said calmly, "it's reacting to you. It recognizes you." "I don't know what to do," she whispered. "You don't have to know," Adrian replied. "You only have to accept it." Elena reached out her hand, slowly, hesitantly. The shard glowed brighter. She closed her eyes and touched it. In an instant, a surge of energy exploded into the room. The chamber shook. The walls flashed with spirals of blue light. Elena's breath caught as visions flooded her mind. Visions of the deep ocean, ancient gates, powerful currents, and a dark shadow waiting behind the rift. Her knees buckled. "Elena!" Adrian shouted, grabbing her arm. But the light became blinding, and everything went white.
Title: The Secrets Behind the Number. The next morning, Lucas left his apartment earlier than usual. He barely slept the night before. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the hidden room under his grandfather's library, the dusty wooden box, and the strange notebook filled with symbols that looked like they belonged to another century. He kept wondering what his grandfather had been involved in and why he had hidden everything so carefully. Lucas grabbed a coffee on the way and walked straight to the university library, the only place where he felt he could think clearly. The building was quiet when he arrived, with only a few students scattered around. Light from the tall windows reached the old wooden shelves, giving the whole place a calm, almost sacred atmosphere. He chose a table in the far corner and placed the notebook in front of him. As he opened it, the faint smell of old paper filled the air. He took a slow breath and started examining the pages one by one. The more he looked, the more he noticed. The notebook wasn't random. It wasn't messy. It was deliberate. There were repeated symbols, specific shapes placed in exact sequences, and numbers that appeared in between the drawings like hidden breadcrumbs. One symbol appeared more than the others, a small triangle inside a circle. Next to it many times was the number 47. Lucas murmured, "Why this number? What did it mean to him?" He took out his laptop and opened a pattern analysis tool he usually used for data research. He typed in several of the symbols and scanned the pages. After a few minutes, the program highlighted one repeating sequence: triangle, circle, 47, X, star. Almost like instructions, almost like coordinates. Lucas leaned back, rubbing his forehead. He had never seen these symbols in any modern research. He tried searching them online, but nothing useful appeared. Just as he started feeling stuck, he heard a familiar voice behind him. "Lucas, you're here early." He turned around and saw Mrs. Hale, the senior librarian, holding a stack of books in her arms. She had known Lucas since he first entered the university, and she had known his grandfather even longer. "I'm working on something important," Lucas said cautiously. Mrs. Hale set the books down and glanced at the notebook. The moment she saw the symbols, her eyes widened slightly, just for a second, but Lucas noticed. "Where did you find this?" she asked, quietly. Lucas hesitated. "My grandfather left it. I discovered it yesterday." Mrs. Hale took a deep breath and moved closer. "These markings, most people wouldn't recognize them, but your grandfather was not most people." Lucas's heart tightened. "You know what the symbols mean?" "Not all of them," she replied softly, "but I recognize this one." She pointed to the triangle in circle symbol. "It belongs to an old group of explorers and researchers. They used coded maps and hidden journals to record their findings." Lucas stared at her, stunned. "My grandfather was part of a group like that?" Mrs. Hale nodded. "Yes, and if this notebook is what I think it is, then the number 47 isn't a number at all." Lucas frowned. "Then what is it?" Mrs. Hale lowered her voice even more. "It's a map identifier, a special one. Your grandfather requested map 47 to be removed from this library more than a decade ago."
Lucas felt the shock crawl up his spine. He removed it? Why? That, she said, is something only he understood. But I remember him saying that map 47 led to something that shouldn't be found quickly. Lucas swallowed hard. Is the map still here? Mrs. Hale looked around carefully and whispered, not in the public section, but it might still be in our restricted archive. Lucas suddenly felt the weight of the notebook again, but heavier this time. Everything pointed to one thing. His grandfather left him a path and a warning. Mrs. Hale touched his shoulder gently. Lucas, be careful. People have searched for these kinds of maps before. Not all of them had good intentions. Lucas nodded slowly, his determination turning sharper. He closed the notebook and whispered to himself, then it's time I find out what he was protecting. This wasn't just about curiosity anymore. This was about uncovering the truth and stepping deeper into a mystery his grandfather had guarded with his life.
Lucas walked out of the main library hall with the notebook pressed tightly against his chest. His mind was racing. Until now, everything had felt mysterious but manageable. But restricted archive sounded like something different, something dangerous, something his grandfather had tried to hide, not just preserve. The restricted archive was located in the oldest part of the university library. Most students didn't even know it existed. The entrance was behind a heavy wooden door with a metal plate that read, "Archival Records, Authorized Access Only." Lucas stood in front of it for a minute, trying to calm his breathing. He knew he couldn't just walk in. You needed an access card and a reason, a very good one. As he debated what to do, he saw Mrs. Hale approaching slowly, carrying a ring of keys and a small access badge clipped to her sweater. "I thought you would come here," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "If your grandfather trusted you enough to leave that notebook, I believe you deserve to see what he left behind." Lucas blinked in surprise. "You're going to let me in?" "I'm going to open the door," she corrected, "but what you do inside, that's your responsibility." She tapped her card, unlocked the door, and pushed it open. Cold air drifted out, carrying the smell of dust, parchment, and forgotten secrets. "Be careful," she said before leaving him alone. "The things stored in this room, they are not simple documents." Lucas stepped inside. The Room of Forgotten Maps. The restricted archive was dimly lit, with long rows of metal drawers stretching across the room like quiet soldiers. Each drawer had a number engraved on a small brass plate. Some drawers were old and rusted, while others were newer. He walked slowly, reading the numbers: 12, 18, 26, 31, 38, 41. His heart pounded when he finally reached 47. The brass number looked older than the others. The drawer's handle was scratched, almost as if someone had opened it many times in the past. He took a deep breath and pulled. The drawer slid out smoothly, revealing a large, carefully rolled map wrapped in wax paper. There was also a small sealed envelope resting beside it. The envelope had a single handwritten word: Lucas. His breath caught in his throat. His grandfather had left something here for him, something meant to be found only after discovering the notebook. This wasn't coincidence. This was a trail. Lucas set the envelope aside for a moment and unwrapped the map. The paper was thick, yellowed by time. He slowly unrolled it across a nearby table. Map 47. The map was unlike anything he had ever seen. It didn't show modern borders, cities, or roads. Instead, it displayed long-forgotten routes, old landmarks, and markings that matched the symbols in the notebook. The triangle within a circle appeared several times, each time near strange locations marked with coordinates. In the lower right corner, a faded seal read, Exploration Society of the Lost Meridian, 1883. Lucas stared at the seal. His grandfather belonged to this? He followed one of the marked routes with his finger. It started from the coastline, traveled through mountains, then stopped at a small symbol shaped like a star. Next to it, in elegant handwriting, was a note: "The Meridian Point. Do not proceed without the key." Lucas whispered, "The key? What key? And what is Meridian Point?" He opened the notebook again and searched for matching symbols. After flipping through several pages, he found it, a sketch of the same star-shaped symbol. Underneath, his grandfather had written, "Not a place, a crossing." A crossing? Between what? Lucas felt his pulse quicken. He didn't understand everything, but he understood enough to know this: his grandfather was protecting a secret location, and Lucas was now the next person meant to find it. The letter. He finally opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a single folded sheet of paper written in his grandfather's familiar handwriting. Lucas read, "My dear grandson, if you are reading this, then you have discovered the notebook and found map 47. I knew this day would come, but I hoped you would be ready, more prepared than I ever was. The route marked on the map leads to something extraordinary. Many believed it was only a myth. They were wrong. You must understand, the Meridian Point is not a treasure, nor a place for adventure. It is something much more important and far more dangerous. Do not trust anyone who asks about the map. Do not reveal the symbols, and do not begin the journey until you are certain you can finish it. The world is not ready for what lies beyond the meridian, but you may be. Grandfather." Lucas lowered the letter, his hands trembling. This wasn't just a secret. This was a mission, one his grandfather had carried alone and now passed to him. He stared at the map again. The Meridian Point waited somewhere far away, hidden behind landscapes and centuries of silence. And Lucas knew. He couldn't walk away now. He had to find it. He had to follow the path his grandfather left behind.